After a day of unprecedented protests in Sri Lanka, calm seems to have returned in the streets of Colombo, but the protesters are refusing to move out of the residence. After storming the colonial-era presidential palace, the protesters lounged in its opulent rooms, diving into the compound's pool, having lunch in the kitchen and going through Rajapaksa's clothes. But in comparison to yesterday's storm, today's scenario inside the president's palace is much more calm. Protesters are still inside the president's residence. Food and water were also distributed inside the palace. Families were seen having lunch inside the compound. Some took selfies on the grand interiors, and some were enjoying the comfortable beds, a striking contrast to the misery many have rendered or endured since the start of the crisis. In a viral video, some individuals can be seen recovering a large sum of money from an unidentified location inside the presidential house. A local news portal alleged that a sum of around $49,000 was recovered by the protesters. The money had been handed over to the local police station by the protesters. Hundreds of thousands had gathered in Colombo, demanding Rajapaksa to take responsibility for shortages of medicine, food and fuel. The Rajapaksas brought the once relatively rich economy to its knees and caused misery for ordinary people. On Saturday, the security forces tried to hold the crowd by all means by firing tear gas to disperse them. They provided an escape window to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa as he fled his residence and then boarded a naval craft which steamed away from the island to safety. And joining us live now is an activist who was part of the group which marched to the presidential secretariat in Colombo. His name is Prasad Welikumbura. Prasad, welcome to WION. I'm curious, you must have interacted with a cross-section of the demonstrators. Was it wise enough to ransack the presidential palace, and is this a solution?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you properly. Can you repeat the question again?
I am very curious, Prasad. You joined the number of demonstrators to raid the presidential secretariat. You must have interacted with a cross-section of the demonstrators. Was it wise enough to ransack the presidential palace, and is this the solution?
I don't see it as a ransacking the presidential palace. What we did was, what protesters did, it was, they have captured the presidential palace and the presidential secretariat, his official building. And currently protesters are occupying those two buildings. And it's a statement that the people of this country no longer accept Gotabaya Rajapaksa as president. He is mandated. I mean, if you look at the number of people gathered yesterday, more than 1 million people at a given time. And none of them were came there because political parties asked them to come there. It was genuinely people's protest. People who thought that we need this regime and we need a change. And that's why they were here. And I believe it's a genuinely, people are trying to take the power back to them from a say, very oppressive regime who has been running from to.
All right, Prasad, you are breaking a little bit. I want you to be slow in your response, at least so that we can hear you. Do you think that having ousted both the Prime Minister and the President out of their homes can bring some change and address the financial crisis in Sri Lanka?
The issue is, most of the people think the President Rajapaksa and his regime is the cause for the issues we are facing today. For some extent, that is true. I mean, most of the financial, economical decisions they have made and how they operate in this country. There are a lot of allegations about corruption and misusing public funds in the name of development, such as we have the tallest tower in South Asia.
Okay.
But we are not a penny from it.
Oh.
And people are blaming Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his government for all the issues they are facing. So they believe that he need to resign. It doesn't mean that after he got, after he is leave, everything's gonna be all right. But he is responsible for what has happened, and he has to. It is about taking the responsibility.
Okay. Prasad, as we wind up this conversation, I want to know what is happening currently after the protests. What is the situation in Sri Lanka at this moment? Briefly tell us.
Right now, today, protesters open all three buildings they have captured. That is President's official residence, President's official house, and the Prime Minister's official residence. All of those, all three buildings have been opened for the public, and there are large group of public are currently coming from all around the country to visit these places, and they are coming during a crisis period. There are like mile-long queues to get fuel and stuff, and still they are visiting those buildings. And I believe that is because they are supporting the public movement and.
Okay. All right. Prasad Welikumbura, thank you very much. We'll have to end this conversation there. Thank you very much for making time and for talking to us today.
Okay. Bye-bye.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.